welcome back. My name's Faye and I'm a UK-based wedding photographer shooting weddings all over the world, and YouTube is my space to share insightful and free information with people to help you at whatever stage you're at in your photography journey. Today is a really special one. I do a lot of destination and I'm constantly inundated with questions about working abroad and sharing hacks and all of that stuff, but as much as I like to share, I'm very aware that I'm not the oracle of all things destination, so I thought it'd be really helpful to start interviewing other people within the photography space about topics that they are also really good at. Today I am sharing an interview with one of my really good friends in the industry, Ross Hurley. He is a really established, amazing photographer, has been doing weddings for over a decade and he's still relevant. His work is gorgeous, he's booked and blessed, and honestly he's just got so much that will help you inside that little brain of his. Little huge brain. He's honestly just amazing. I'm so excited to share this interview. We chatted a lot of rubbish, went off on a few tangents, but we have also shared loads and loads of hacks that I think you're going to find really helpful. So without further ado, dive in, and if you enjoy this, please do consider subscribing. Hi.
Hello.
Hello, look at your bro setup. This is so cool.
How are you? You good?
I'm good. Okay, so hi, thank you so much for agreeing to do this. I'm so excited. You're obviously the oracle of destination. You might be the only person that I know that does more destination than me, which is a crazy amount. So tell me who you are and what
Right.
you do.
So I'm Ross. I'm a UK and destination wedding photographer, but the split seems to be edging towards more destination these days. I've been in the wedding industry for 12 years and started professionally as a photographer back in 2001 as a music and press photographer. So what's that? That's 24 years as a photographer.
It's insane, isn't it?
Nuts.
And you still look so young. It's
Oh, thank
having
you.
kids and have been.
I'll pay you later.
I know it's I'm just going to be so nice to you today. I should say as well, for anybody watching, we are quite good friends in real life, so we might be a bit not inappropriate, but relaxed with each other, which I suppose will be good because
There's,
I'll ask you all the hard questions.
yeah.
So I've got a list of questions, so I'll be looking over at them just to make sure that I'm not going off too much on a tangent. The next thing that I wanted to say was, because you've been in the industry for so, so long, obviously we can't go through every single thing that you've ever done, but can you share some big career highlights that you still think back and you're like, wow, that was such a good moment in my career?
Do you want to limit that to weddings, or would you like that as a sort of more broad range?
No, I think anything, because I think everything that we do is relevant to our wedding,
Yeah.
right?
So I would start back in, when I got to photograph, the largest bands and music icons in the world. That was massive at the time, and that led into sort of lots of front pages of newspapers and very weird things. Like I would get on a train on a Sunday going somewhere into London, and next to me someone will be sitting there with News of the World looking at my pictures from the story that I'd created all week, and they're sort of really, I used to love that, and that for me is sort of big career highlights. I don't know, weddings, weddings for me are a little different. For me, I think career highlights are almost like various stepping stones as you move through your career. They sort of adjust as slowly over time. If you go to the beginning, it was booking that first wedding, then it was booking it was 55 odd weddings once upon a time, and that was a big thing to do. It then moved, so I was then always aiming to sort of be at the top of the local photographers list, and I
Right.
kept for Kent, yeah,
Yeah.
and I was number one on Kent for like 3 years or whatever it was, 4 years, and that was a big moment. And then it became changing and adjusting from that to saying, I want to work abroad, I want to work in Europe, and then getting there and doing that. And so I think it's an ever moving kind of
I
career
think
highlights.
what I love about you, because and we gelled immediately, as soon as we met, I was like, I've got a lot of time for this guy. I just love your energy, everything you're about. But the thing that I think I was really, really impressed by was just your work ethic. You don't make excuses. You've been in the industry for a very long time and you're a bit of a shapeshifter. And I feel like you have to be a shapeshifter. And you've kind of just hit the nail on the head that you do just keep moving the goalposts, because I'm the exact same. So that's probably why I still remember in Lake Como when we were just chatting shit all day long, and I just thought you were the most interesting person ever. I'm so excited to
I'm good at chatting shit.
meet. So you were King of Kent for a long time, and then organically started to do more destination. What was it about the destination scene that drew you in, do you think?
So I'll begin with, in the press days, I used to work all over Europe and I used to travel a lot then. And so working abroad as a photographer was fabulous. But as you know, working abroad, it's not as glamorous as everyone makes out on Instagram. It's you're missing family days out, or it's just a lot of hard work. And so I actually made the decision when I started weddings that I didn't want to work abroad. I didn't want to travel. I wanted to stay within the UK, especially with little kids as well coming along.
But then you had twins and you were like, hang on, it's
Twins, I was straight
hard.
out the door.
No, I'm joking. Like, I'm joking.
Yeah, but it was, I don't know if other people would be in the same boat, but it was 2020. It was the lockdowns. It was being stuck at home, not being able to do anything. The
Yeah.
weddings were out the window. There was a small part of me for a period of that time that I almost gave up the lot. I thought I'm just done with this. I was just getting so sick and tired of what was happening in the wider world, of how it was being sort of portrayed on the news, whatever. But I decided to stick with it. But that itch, that bug of traveling again came back, because, as I say, just stuck in the house. And I thought, you know what, I really would like to travel again and do this abroad. And then the research starts happening. You're looking at what other photographers are creating in Italy, in Spain, in France, and you're like, I could do that.
There's literally nothing like it, is there? Like
No.
nothing else compares. I don't know whether it's just because it is different or whether it's all of it, isn't it? Like when you go on holiday, you're a different person, you're relaxed, and like we might not be like that when we're shooting a destination wedding because it's so much more work, but the guests are. And you
Yeah,
just can't compare a 1 day wedding in London to a 3 day
no,
wedding in France, Italy, Greece. It's
no.
insane.
I love UK, and they will be a main staple of my diary. But there is a difference, a massive
Yeah.
difference with the atmosphere and how everyone is. And you just say it's like they're all on holiday,
Yeah.
and it's brilliant to capture and be involved in.
You can tell, like, I feel like when I explain it, I kind of say, like, there's just an energy shift where people know they've not got work tomorrow. And it's not even they've not got work tomorrow, they've got work in like 4 days. And maybe if they're US clients, they've extended the trip for 2 weeks. And you just can't compare that. Like,
No.
UK weddings are great and they've got their place. And if you did 30 destination weddings a year, you would die. But
Yeah,
it's nice to have it like anchor your year, isn't it? And have them to look
yeah,
forward to between your other weddings.
yeah. I
So,
think you,
oh, go
you
on.
mentioned 13. I think it's 13 or 14 I did this year, and it's a lot. To be
Same
honest,
as
it's been a
me.
lot.
Yeah, it's a lot. We are going to get into like the nitty gritty and the hard stuff of destination, but let's keep it like rose tinted for a little bit longer so we're not
Yeah.
scaring anybody off because it is worth it, I think. Otherwise we wouldn't be doing so much, would
It
we?
swings and roundabouts. For every minus is a positive.
Yeah, exactly. So you decided that you wanted to do more destination. You started to do the research, which you've just alluded to. You were looking at like what your work might look like. How organic was getting that first booking? Like, what were the steps to securing that first booking? What did you do?
So, you get nothing for free in life, and sitting back and hoping it will come to you will never work ever. And so, it didn't happen organically, and it never would. So, it needed investment and pushing myself into that space for it to work. So, we kind of mentioned earlier, but my kind of ethos is always take the ball by the horns, create the opportunities that I want to achieve. So initially, it began with looking up some workshops abroad or in Europe. And the
Yeah.
funny thing with that is, I'd never done a workshop in my life. I'd been working as a wedding photographer for so long, I never really felt the need to have to go to do that kind of thing. And I looked up a workshop, Milkshake Kisses, it was called.
Sierra and Russell's, isn't it?
Vera and Russell, yeah.
Icon.
And I didn't know them at the time, but I thought, you know what? If I'm going to do this, let's just do it. I didn't know a single soul going
And this
to
iconic Croatia, pink, orange,
Croatia.
like
Yeah. I
green.
thought,
Yeah,
let's
yeah,
just do
yeah.
this. My wife kind of rolled her eyes. She's like, if you want, why can't you just do one in the UK? And I said, no, we need to go 100% straight away. I want to go to Croatia. I want to just, see what we can create. And you know what? I got the bug, from that, yeah, we created a portfolio. I did more. We created more portfolio, and ultimately, and that actually led into creating my own style shoots abroad, where I did
What was your
Mallorca.
gateway?
Yeah, and ultimately from that, I already had the extensive portfolio anyway of your kind of standard UK wedding, but adding those locations into that, then of course the destination wedding inquiries started to
Yeah.
trickle through.
Yeah, exactly. I was exactly the same. I did a lot, which is actually where I met Connor and Joe. Yeah, it's just insane, isn't it? Like you go and you get so much more than just the content. Like it opens up this whole new
Yeah.
world and
Was
photography.
Apulia one your first one? I hadn't realised that.
Yeah, so and it's funny as well, but like thinking back now because I was in so much pain because it rained the whole time, and that was just before I'd had my hip replacement. So I think that's why me, Connor, and Joe got so close because bless them, they were just looking after me like the whole time.
Yeah,
But yeah, that was the first one, and then after that, I'm like 100 miles an hour, let's go straight away person, and
yeah,
I organised Croatia for myself, Lake Como, and then Dolomite. So workshop, we can touch on workshops a little bit really quickly because I know that when we started chatting, you said there'd been some resistance, like with people that you knew when you started to do workshops, and everybody's got an opinion on styled shoots, but for me, I've made my entire career from styled shoots. Like it's very hard to get organic growth
yeah.
unless
Hmm.
you're showing, like if somebody's spending 100 grand on a wedding, they're not risking it with the photographer. They're only booking someone who's demonstrated that they've got those skills, right?
Yeah,
So workshops for me are like a non-negotiable. Even now that I'm really booked and blessed, like workshops are still where I take it to the next level, always.
yeah, 100%.
And
Yeah,
I know
yeah.
we're on the same page with this.
Yeah, yeah. You know, there's a lot of pushback in the industry about workshops. Maybe it's nearly always coming from the older school of wedding photographer, which I'd like to call myself, to be honest. You know, I'm in their camp, but I'm not in their camp with the view of it because, you know, I've done it and I've seen
You've seen the
what
results, though.
you get
You've
out of
got
it.
the
Yeah.
tangible evidence that it works, I guess.
100 and you know they sort of say, well, you know, that people are creating these images but they don't know how to capture a proper wedding. Well, I did know how to capture a proper wedding and I still did it, and look what sort of kind of come out from it. You know, I think if people were
Wild.
to do it straight away without the background knowledge of shooting a wedding, yes, I sort of see slightly that, you know, you do get more time with a couple. It's not quite as stressful as a wedding day. You know, on a shoot you might get a whole, well, a good couple of hours to be working with a couple in various locations. On a wedding day you could get 10 minutes and you've got to try and implement that straight away. But I stick by the fact that if you want to push yourself out there to get better inquiries into locations you want to be in, destination shoots or even UK style shoots are the way forward.
Yeah, I agree. And like, hey, this video is not about style shoots, but I think as long as you're being transparent that they're a shoot and you're not trying to mislead people that they're a wedding, why wouldn't you invest in yourself, train
No,
in a safe space? Like,
yeah,
I think go for it. Like, workshops are incredible. And
yeah,
I think that's why when I do mine, I really try to keep the sessions very short. Like, often you've only got 20 minutes maximum with a couple
yeah.
because that's real life. Like, when do we ever have more than that with a couple?
The
But
other thing I
anyway,
think, one of the other things I sort of see a lot is, I think a lot of the older school photographers that haven't done it have this impression that the images have been created almost for the photographer. So the
yeah,
couple have just naturally fallen into these amazing poses or whatever.
yeah,
And as you know, it's not like that. We
no,
create what we're creating and we can still replicate that on a wedding day, you know. So the images you see in someone's portfolio, if it is from a styled shoot, it
yeah.
actually the picture itself, how it's been created, where the light is, has been arranged by the photographer. So
Yeah.
they're showing a skill set.
Quite often, like workshops are not organized. We've gone off on a tangent here, but I love this shit, so it's fine. We like if the workshop's not been organized by a photographer, you can tell like the light isn't always in the best place and you're still
No,
having to move things. And
all the
also
time.
you're fighting, not fighting, but competing to get a shot with up to 10 other people. We did a big workshop last year and there was like 20 people there. It was really busy. So sometimes actually to get that content at a workshop, it's harder than it would be at a real wedding.
Yeah. And I come home from a workshop so drained
Yeah,
because the where you're at a wedding, you're kind of having to be totally on the ball for that couple shoot, maybe a little small little sessions through the day.
yeah,
Whereas when you're doing a styled shoot, you're kind of working for 6 to 8 hours, constantly thinking of where can I put the couple, where's the light,
yeah.
what's going on with the
It's so
shadows.
funny, like at the end of a workshop, I just see, obviously, as a host, just everybody's just completely dead. And I'm just like, yes, my work here is done. Like, I've
Yeah.
completely killed them off. This is amazing.
And that's the other thing, because I think, and again, people who haven't done it think it's this easy day getting content. As I say, I come home so drained if I've ever done one.
Yeah. It's like right, it's reward, isn't it, versus the effort. Like we've spoken a little bit, we've alluded to it. We'll talk about it a bit more later about how difficult destination can be. And then we've kind of just covered a few of the like hard bits about style shoot. But everything in business, you're just constantly weighing up like the effort that it's going to take and the reward that you're going to
Yeah,
get.
you know, so the industry never sleeps, and you should never stop learning and pushing yourself in the industry. You know, styles and trends continuously change, and things like style shoots, they really help you sort of start moving on. You can try new things out, what you're going to implement in within your wedding day. But you know, the other side of it as well, just sort of, I guess, finish with that style shoot side of it, is I love the social side,
Yeah.
meeting new photographers, meeting other suppliers, and going back to that learning side of it. It's funny because a lot of the time I might be in a group of people, some of which have only been shooting weddings 6 months, you know, and I am still learning off of those guys because they're looking at it with a completely different and fresh eye, and I'm thinking, well, I like that, you know, and I can take things off of them. So yeah.
I think that's why I really, sorry, my cat's just come to say hello. I think that's why I really loved talking to you so much because there was no ego. Like I found you really easy to be around. I'd feel like you were really open. Like, yeah, you've got your own way of doing things and yeah, you've been doing it for a long time and you know what you like, but I can see that curiosity, but maybe that's the journalist in you. Like you're always open to new ideas and maybe that's why your work's so good because you aren't like, I feel like if I ever think that I know enough and I don't need any more, that's the moment to quit,
Oh
right?
yeah, hang up the cameras straight away.
Yeah, exactly.
But I don't think you will. I don't think you will get there. And those that do, that is the time to sort of give it. I mean, I don't want to mention names or anything like that, but I do know of photographers that were doing it when I was doing it 10 years ago, 12 years ago, and they're still shooting the same venues in the same way, in the same edit as they did then. And I think if I was at that point, I probably would stop.
Yeah, exactly. Like you've got to keep growing, especially because now I'm a lot older than most of my couples. And at first I found that a bit jarring. I was like, how am I going to relate to them? How am I going to speak to them? What am I going to do? And actually what I found is I can still be myself and still show up organically. And if they want to pick me, like they've chosen me. You're a little tiny bit older than me. So have you found that as well, that you've had to change how you are with your couples as the age has got a little bit bigger, or have you just carried on
Yeah, you have to. Everything changes every year. Everything. It's some, you know, elements of your what you do has to move on and adjust. How you talk to someone. When I began this, we met in a coffee shop and we would discuss a wedding before booking or whatever. Of course, it's
Yeah,
now all on Zoom, but even the way I go through a Zoom with couples has had to change and adjust.
yeah.
Gone were the days of maybe spending a good hour chatting to a couple before a wedding. I think younger clients are they're a bit
We're
more quick.
time poor. We're time
Yeah,
poor.
time poor, and they
Yeah,
want to be quick with it. You know, I don't. I'm not. I'm kind of always looking at the clock. I don't want to go over 15 minutes. I want a 15-minute
yeah.
session where they get all the
Isn't
information
it
they
so
need.
weird? Because I was talking to someone about this the other day as well, and I was like, I feel like now my client calls are in and out.
Yeah,
Whereas, like, even last year, they were over an hour. Every
yeah,
now and again, I'll get a client that wants to talk for longer, but it's very rare. Like,
yeah.
most of my
A-
couples want to
And
be,
if that happens, you let it organically roll
yeah,
with
of
it. You
course.
know. But for the most part, I get kind of an idea of how I sort of portray what I do. I
Yeah,
like to hear about them as well and find out, you know, what they're about, how they met, all that kind of stuff. But
yeah,
I realize that you've got to be short and concise with what you're
yeah.
doing. And there's loads of things like that. It's just language in terms of your website and things, you know, just everything has to adjust every single year.
Yeah.
Otherwise you get left behind a little bit.
I love that. Especially when so for destination, you're talking to a much wider scope because your audience is like quadrupled in size. Let's talk a little bit about getting bookings then. So I won't ask you what you did for your first booking, pricing it up and all that stuff, because you probably made loads of mistakes. But if somebody was booking, I don't know, say one in Italy, we both work in Italy a lot. How would you recommend that they price it up compared to their normal UK packages? What are the things that they need to take into account, like second shooters, accommodation? Tell me everything that you would consider when putting that quote together. Give me
Okay.
2 seconds, Ross. I'm just going to put my cats outside because they're.
I hope this stays in.
You know what? The cats get more airtime than any other bloody person that's ever come on, I swear to God. Right, so let's go.
So yeah, I would price it the same as a UK wedding. That's your base. That's what you want to earn.
Yeah,
And then add expenses on top but you don't be stingy with your expenses, because it is stupidly expensive to shoot a destination wedding. Flights are more than you think. Of course, you might do a quick search and go, oh wow, Ryanair, 60 quid, that's brilliant. It's not £60. It will be £360 by the time you've added all the extras that you have to have with your suitcases and whatever else. So my idea of it is, you want £1,000 expenses at the very minimum, and you may go over that, but at least that will cover them. If I've then got to incorporate a second photographer, you actually are looking at towards another £1,000, because you're going to look at £500 expenses of their travel, their hotel,
Then you've got
their
to pay them.
flights, and then you've got to pay them. So you're looking at, for two photographers, an expense of £2,000. Now, some people think that they will lowball the price just because they want some destination weddings, and the issue with that is it's not sustainable, because you're then going to have a client that's paid that money. Now, if your future clients are coming from essentially them or recommendations, your client base stays within that kind of price range, and suddenly you might get more inquiries, but they're all looking for that kind of price point, and you can't do it. You can't do that. It will just ruin your business. It's not sustainable at all. So you do need to price it accordingly to make sure you're going to get the most out of it. It's difficult though, because of course it's a catch-22, because if you feel like you're overpricing it, and you're not going to get the bookings because you haven't got the experience, because you haven't photographed the wedding before.
I guess there's two ways of going into it, because you could lowball but then not do styled shoots and get that, portfolio from real weddings. But if they've paid less for a photographer, how in line with your branding is that wedding going to be?
That's the thing.
Whereas if you invest in your portfolio, you've probably got those really high-end visuals, which is going to help you to get your normal rate.
Yeah.
I mean, here's a fun tangent. Let's play a game. So I now charge like at minimum 2.5, 3K extra compared to my normal pricing. Because for me, I like to get there like 3-4 days before the wedding day to cover all the like pre-stuff. I like to have my team with me for the whole time. Like I've got my routines, and of course, if you're away for 5 days, you're going to miss out on other bookings in the UK. So that's also something to consider if you're taking like, blocking out time. You need to consider that as well. Let's play a game of like, what's the most ridiculous thing that you had to pay for that you weren't expecting to pay for? I'll go first to give you an idea. Last year, we had a wedding in Portugal. I was a team of 3. Jay Bears, who we both know and love, was my third shooter, because the wedding was just insane. So I was like, I need 3 shooters. 2 is not going to cut it, because we had, I think, 5 locations. It was mad. But his flight got cancelled. He then had to go to a different airport. That flight then got cancelled. He then had to get one later on. So at the time, like obviously the refunds came through for those flights, but I was having to pay for them there and then.
Yeah.
Also the stress.
Yeah.
And then he ended up having to get an Uber, because I was going to stay up and go and drive to get him from the airport. But at this point, it was like 6 hours before a full wedding day, and we still didn't know whether he was going to get there. So I was like, I'm not going to wait up and risk having 2 hours sleep before a day in 40-degree heat. Like I need to get some sleep. I'll just pay for an Uber. So I think in the space of 24 hours, I'd spent over £1,000 additional that I'd not anticipated.
Yeah.
And whilst I got the money for the flights back, I didn't get the money for the Uber back. And that was like €400, which was insane. But these things happen all the time.
Oh, I know. Yeah, all the time. It's a very similar story. I got stuck in Florence. They kicked us off
I remember this.
And they couldn't fly us home. Plane was too heavy, apparently. I don't like the sound of that. But anyway, so we eventually, after sort of 8 hours stuck in Florence airport, had to get an Uber to Rome, which was €800. And, these are expenses you're not expecting to pay. Then there's a hotel on top of that as well. We had to stay there, and then it's the flight home the next day. But then also other little things, like, I'll be honest, I've had a year of car hire companies stitching me up, sending me bills for things that weren't, I didn't do it. I dropped a car off in France, early morning drop-off key thing, and got an email the next day to say the tires were apparently slashed, and
You've taken videos though and stuff, hadn't you? I'm guessing.
So I've done the videos obviously when I picked it up, but when I dropped it off, there was nothing wrong with it. I just stuck it in the thing. But €400 of apparently expense to a tire, that there was no problems. But you can get them back, and luckily I have had that money back from the insurance company, which you must have for a car. But these are all expenses that you need to initially account for.
You almost need like a rainy day fund, but like 5 grand just sat there at all times if you're doing a season abroad, because it all seems to come at once, and you want to be making those decisions from a place of how am I going to get to my client to give them the service that they've paid for, not how am I going to do all of this and still feed my kids and like survive. So you almost need to have like a contingency
Yeah.
at all times to do destination, don't you?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, yeah. You just have to have a fund in there for that for the problems that arise.
I could literally car hire this year has been the worst one ever, and I'm thinking about doing a video on this actually to talk about like all the different companies that I've used. I've just started getting the all singing, all dancing
Yeah,
insurance, but booking through booking.com so that the base is like really, really low.
yeah,
But then for some countries like Spain, record goes really cheap, but then in Italy it's completely different. So you get to know which companies are best wherever you go, and it's not the same even from like Tuscany to it's
yeah.
completely different, even though it's the same country. It's wild, isn't it?
I've been looking at that very thing myself. So for the most part of the last few years, I've always got the all singing, all dancing insurance, and I like it because I can get in the car, I don't have to worry about it, I can drop it off with no wheels on it, and it's just fine. Here's the key, deal with that. However, it's just so pricey to be
Yeah.
paying every single trip. So I've been trialing some things of late because on booking.com you get a fully comp insurance on that.
Yeah.
So I've tried that twice. I haven't had to use it yet, so I haven't really seen how that would work afterwards. But
Yeah.
there's also a private insurance that I have that only cost me, I think, £40 for the year.
Yeah, so I got private, but then we had like our tire exploded, and then we also had a puncture, and we've still not got the money back from it from
Oh,
the.
really?
So I'm trying like loads of different things because we do
Yeah.
so much destination, don't we, between the two of us, like just to make sure that I'm not hemorrhaging thousands of pounds. So we've just spoken a little bit about contingency and money, and you said when you're starting, like a good idea is like £1,000 per person extra. But how do you organize your packages now?
So I have found a lot of the time this year with destination clients who are from, say, America or whatever, they actually sometimes don't want to be pigeonholed too much into being pushed a package. So I've actually gone down the route now of I offer a package that covers everything they kind of need to capture their wedding, and then a kind of a la carte system in which they can then add all the extras that they need. Now, the reason I think that works for me is because every wedding is so different. You go from an intimate elopement with
Yeah.
only a few of them to massive multi-day wedding, pre-wedding party, all this kind of stuff. And
Yeah.
sometimes I found a packages can kind of just push them in an area they might not want that, but they do want that. So it's been working quite well. In which I say I do offer packages, and they do steadily grow. But sometimes they'll pick the basic package,
And
and then
then
they can
add on.
add in the things they need, which has worked quite well. And I feel clients like to create a bespoke package. It feels more personal to them.
So what does your base package look like? What's included in it?
So base package is 8 hours, one photographer. Trying to remember it now. Let me try and bring it up, and I can reel it off for you. Actually, it's also probably worth mentioning here. I know a lot of people, and you probably do this yourself, is send out a PDF, a brochure of some sort.
I use Canva links.
Yeah. Well, I used to send a brochure. I think it was about 30 pages in length. And like we said earlier, I think people's time spans are so much shorter
Yeah.
that I actually felt like it wasn't working as well as it used to.
Yeah.
So I've ended up cutting that out. I don't send this massive brochure. If they're asking for pricing, I send them pricing. They've seen my website, they've read everything on there, and they're obviously already interested in inquiring with me. So rather than then going through 30 pages of what I do, what I don't do, all the rest of it, I just keep it as simple as pricing, which I have found to work much
I've
easier.
got a brochure, but it's linked because it's on Canva. It's all hyperlinked, so they can click on pricing straight away. Same as a website, but the
Yeah.
brochure is very image heavy and it's all very like gorgeous destination visuals. So it's not hard to consume. The
Yeah.
actual text on the brochure is very minute.
Yeah.
I like that. It works.
Sometimes less is more, I find these days. So
Photographers, like we're like writing them a fucking novel. Like, why? Then they want a photographer.
I reread my brochure this year, funny thing, and I was like, wow, I used to send this out. It's
Yeah.
just so much information. They know
Like,
everything about me, but from this brochure.
yeah, I know. It's like they need my national insurance number.
Yeah. So my basic collection is me, 8 hours. I mentioned there's an X amount of pictures, 50 pictures or so delivered within a certain amount of time. But I also go into the fact that this package is probably suitable for a smaller wedding, so up to say 60 guests.
Yeah.
And then from there they can start. Now they can go for the extra packages which I've built, or they can run to the additional options and they can add the extra hours, they can add the extra photographer, the welcome dinner, or
It feels
the
very custom
party.
for them.
Yeah, and then they can sit and fill out what they're looking for booking. And I quite often ask in the inquiry stage when they want to book a Zoom call what they're actually looking at booking, so I can then have an idea of that before we chat, and we can then kind of run through everything. Things like social media, content creation, of all that on there. So there's all these additions that they
Yeah,
can.
let's just go off on a little tangent about this with you and your Insta 360. Like, you've been thriving. Is it an Insta 360? What
It
do you
is. Yeah.
do? It always makes me smile so much.
Well, I've only shared one thing from
Like
it
a full,
actually.
like, dad vlogger.
Yeah, I've got a folder on my computer that is just heaving with stuff to edit and put out. I just haven't had the time yet, and that's my winter. When we're a bit quieter, you'll start seeing all these Insta 360
Oh, I
videos
love
coming out.
it.
I hope.
I
I
love
haven't
it.
even looked through them yet.
Did a wedding with Connor like 2 weeks ago, and it was like dads on top. Like, it was so wholesome and cute, and like the sock shop just like threw me over the edge. But like in
Him
my
and socks everywhere he goes. Oh, I've got to get a
yeah,
pair of
but he's like
socks.
a 90-year-old man trapped in a younger man's body. But you two on tour, it just cracked me up with the like little espressos and stuff. But like in my course, I've been talking a lot about like how social media like needs to become social again. And with stories, I am really, what's the word that I'm trying to look for? Like unpretentious. Like my stories are just what I'm up to. And I get really good engagement with my stories, but I think it's because everything is just so polished now on Instagram. And I mean, you even more than me, like your style is extremely fine art, whereas mine's a little bit moodier and a little bit messier. But your stories where you're just going out and having a coffee and, taking the piss out of Connor because he's buying socks. I love that because it's just real life. And like, even though our work is gorgeous, we are still just normal people. Do you feel like the BTS is helping you to connect with clients more and you're getting bookings off the back of it?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, you look at the Insta feed as your kind of portfolio, the work you're putting out. There's no point putting the same stuff up all the time and then in stories. I like that to show what we're actually doing and what we're up to. And those that are following, they get to see that. And just it is more fun. I like doing the stories.
Yeah.
Just
But you
out
can
and
tell that
about.
you enjoy it, which I think is why we enjoy it as the audience, because you can tell that you're just like two lads on tour
Yeah.
having like a cute time, and like we're like, oh, that's so nice. We feel like we're there with you almost. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. That's kind of the plan, really. And then, if you're looking at it as a strategy, it can make people then want to see the pictures that come up,
Yeah.
3-4 days later. So, but I just, yeah, I have to say, I just enjoy doing it now. That gone are the days of, oh God, BTS, I've got to do BTS. You
Yeah,
can't
if it
stop me.
feels like a chore, you probably shouldn't be doing it as part of your marketing. Like, I've been talking about this a lot this week, actually. Like, you need to find what is like things that you genuinely enjoy because people can see if it's coming from a sincere place. Like, if you're sharing because you have to share, we can tell. So
Yeah,
it just reads as like really unorganic, doesn't it? But
yeah, yeah.
I know that you are laughing, like looking at Connor, like, oh, I'm going to put that on my story. Like, I can see your cheeky little faces and him like playing up to you as well because you two together are just hilarious. And I don't know, maybe that's just because I know you, but do you feel like your couples also get excited and like message you and they're like, oh my God,
Oh
I can't
yeah.
wait for you to be there?
Yeah. When I'm on at a destination wedding and I'm putting the stories out, the reactions, the comments, just the hearts, it's massive. There's so
Yeah.
much interaction with it, makes you feel good at the same time, but which has pushed me further and further to doing more and more and more. I think, as you say, if you're doing it as a chore, it's just not going to come through very well. I do see various views on it whereby people go, "Oh, I'm not really into that BTS thing," and that's fine. You
Yeah,
do
it's not
you.
for
Yeah,
everybody.
yeah. You don't have to do it. There are people that sort of go, "Oh, I'd like to do it, but I can never remember to do it." Those are the people I'd say you've got to try and remember. When this all become a big thing, 2021 is when I found stories really sort of started to grow. I used to write film on my thumb so I could be like, oh yeah, get my phone out and just get a little bit of some clips of something. And then from that, you just, of course, it becomes muscle memory in the end. And
There are ways of doing it which feel so, for example, we're very different because you film BTS throughout most of the day. I don't. I'd rather like be taking the photos. Any BTS that I get, it tends to be like the days leading up to the wedding or after it. But that doesn't mean that that's right.
Yeah.
It's different for everybody. Like people have got different varying levels of comfort. I think if you're sharing all the time that that's what you do, your couples are likely booking you. It's like there's a makeup artist, Lauren McCabe, she's called. She shares so much, but I feel like the couples book her because they want to be in her videos, and I think your couples probably do that as well.
Yeah,
Do you
yeah,
know what I
all
mean?
the time. I'll get the phone out, and they'll be like, "Oh, great, get something for the gram," and because they're just so used to it. But just to touch upon something you said earlier,
Yeah,
there is no right or wrong way to do any of this. And I'm going to throw back to a story probably 10 years ago now, where I was in a group of photographers, established photographers, and I put out there how at the time how I delivered my images. Now, weirdly, at that time, we wasn't so quick on putting out previews, and I used to do quick previews, and they slated me for it, telling me that's not how we should be doing it. That's not the right way. You should give them their previews maybe a week or two later, make them feel excited. That was how it was looked upon. And I was told that's the wrong way of doing it. And it always stayed with me because there's
but
not a
there's
wrong or
no
right
wrong
way.
way.
No,
Like it's your business. You get to do whatever you want.
exactly. And now in this day and age, I'm on threads where it's just nothing but battles, it seems. And there'll be people telling other photographers, this is wrong. You should not be doing this. This is not the way we do it, or all this. And I think, no right or wrong
I
way.
got trolled like so badly, and I was like, this is not a space for me. Like, it's just so angry. But like, fair play, you have your opinions. But for me, it's like, I don't think that I'm the oracle. Like, obviously, I think when you start doing education, which you're going to find because you've just launched your education services as well, it sometimes feels like people might think that you're, I don't know, self-important or arrogant, or you think you know that the way that the terrain is. And it's not like that at all. You're just sharing what works for you. And if people want to take that on board, then they have to. But what I love about you is that you've always said that thing, like, I'm just doing me and what works for my business.
Yeah,
It's right for me.
yeah, yeah.
Might not
Exactly,
be
just
right for
like
other
that.
people, but it's right for me. And I feel exactly the same way.
Yeah, do you know, I will spend days upon end working out new ways of doing something. And it's not because someone else is doing it or not doing it. It's because I've suddenly come up with an idea of doing it a different way myself. And that's the way it should always be. You should just, trial things. And if it works for you, keep doing it. But yeah, there is a weird old guard that like to tell everyone how they should be doing it, which is wrong.
Yeah, I think anything that makes you happy is good. That's helping you to run the business sustainably is good. The only time really I'd encourage people to think about doing things differently is if there's reoccurring stress, reoccurring anxiety. On that note, actually, let's quickly, I've gone off on a tangent, but let's talk about kit. It's hard with destination because if you're in London and something went wrong with your kit, you could just nip into London and get any number of things at a glance. You can't do that with destination. So how do you organize but like balancing a smaller kit because you're having to travel with it on your back for 4 days in a row, but still having spares of all the essentials? Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah. So I have my bag that fits with the various different airlines, and I'm strict with that. I know maybe some people don't stick to those rules all the time. I couldn't do the stress with that. I keep seeing people being pulled out in the lines for having bags that are oversized, and I don't want that. So I stick
I
to that.
pay for it every time. I'm like, I'm not risking this getting separated from me.
Can't have that. Yeah. So, using the space that's given to you, I will have the core kit that will make, I can capture a full wedding on that core kit. In there will be a spare camera body and a spare lens.
You've
Should the
got
worst happen.
two bodies, and
Two
what
bodies.
what lenses are you taking? What focal lengths?
So I'm Canon, so it's two R6s. And this year I've got the new 28-70 f2, which is now the main workhorse camera lens. And then
Sorry to interrupt you, because like that's a fucking heavy combination.
oh
Like,
yeah.
do you feel like
Yeah,
you're having to alternate arms?
with that on it as well, and the trigger and everything else, my hands are shaking by the end when I'm trying to
Well,
hold
you
it with one
can't. Are
hand.
you still trying to do off-camera flash? Because like,
Yeah, yeah, I'm like that.
oh my God, you're going to be like bloody Arnie Hammer. Like, oh, not Arnie Hammer. That's the dodgy one. Arnie Schwarzenegger.
Nearly didn't get it. It took me a full year last year to think about getting it. to the point where at the beginning of this season, I just went, no, come on, let's do it. But it was the weight that was the worry, because I am doing
It's kind of
various
already
different
heavy
things.
anyway.
But I'll be honest, I'm pleased I got it, because it then has, although it's heavy to the one hand, it's meant actually everything. I'm not carrying two cameras anymore. I'm actually now just carrying the one camera for the most part of the day. So overall weight is actually less, but it's a fabulous lens. It can do absolutely everything. But in that bag is
You're not missing
old...
moments because you're constantly like
No.
zooming in, zooming
Yeah,
out.
I found where I would normally be chopping to another camera to get the focal length,
Yeah.
and that moment might have passed. I'm now just twisting, and it's
I also
straight on.
find that because it's f2, it works really, really well when it's really sunny. Like it sort of diffuses the light a little bit, whereas primes obviously let so much light in. Like I still use an ND filter. I've got a variable earth filter, which is incredible for my f2. But if I've not had time to put it on yet, I feel like I can save more images than
Yeah.
before. If I was on my 85, bloody hell, you'd feel like you were in purgatory. It was that bright, like just like so much light in, and you're like, whoa, this is a lot.
Yeah, and I guess you might lose obviously a few stops of light in real dark scenarios with
Yeah.
from a very fast prime, but for the most part, and the way that the style has progressed in weddings, I'm very rarely now at f2 or 1.4, because of course there's this more stylized daylight flash kind of feel to images. So my aperture's not always there. So having the 28 to 70 f2, I'm not kind of really missing. I'm f5.6 sometimes, for portraits, just because I'm using the flash at the same time. So yeah, it's working well. But then just to run back to that kit, like, I've obviously got a flash in there for that, for the dark stuff, for the daylight stuff, your spare batteries, your cards. But I also then carry a camera cube in my suitcase that then has additional extras. Yeah. Now, worst case scenario, suitcase gets lost. I don't really want that, because there's expensive stuff in there, but it's not the stuff I need. It's the stuff I like to take as extras.
Yeah.
And it means you've got more options on a wedding day.
Yeah, I do exactly the same thing. Like I always pay for a case, so I've always got because my camera bag is as big as a rolling luggage, and then I pay for a check-in bag. Then I've got extra stuff in my suitcase, and it is extra, but it's like say you just need to prepare for the worst case scenario. Like if this bag got separated from me, or if the plane lost it or whatever, am I still going to be able to shoot the wedding? Because if you're in Iraq or the south of France, like in the middle of nowhere, you're not getting someone to nip down with spare batteries, are you?
No, not at all. And things like, old film cameras, as much as I love to work with film on a wedding day, they actually go in the camera cube, because, worst case scenario, I can do a wedding without the film.
Obviously, if the couple had paid for it and explicitly said, we want it,
that's the main thing.
make space. But if it's like an extra that you're doing for them, then it can go off.
Yeah.
What are the hardest, like you've started doing more drone now, which is really exciting. What are your like, not essential kits, but the things that you really love using for a destination wedding?
I mean, do you know what? It's a shame you said the drone then, because probably the drone is one of the main things that can really, push a gallery up into from a normal gallery to an amazing gallery. You can really capture some fabulous things, and that's not just a static shot of the venue. You can be running it over guests partying and stuff, and capture all different angles like that.
And the perspective is so crazy, because that's what's going to make you stand out now in terms of like a USP. If you're doing destination without a drone, you're going to struggle to book clients, I think, because clients are looking for those drone shots, aren't they?
Yeah, drone's standard, isn't it now? I think every photographer has to have a drone, in my opinion, if you're going to be... I say that, I guess not every photographer. If you're not aiming at a certain market, I guess not. You don't need it. But I think if you want to push yourself into that kind of more luxury destination market, you kind of do need it. And when they're spending so much money on their venues abroad, they're going to... Yeah, exactly. The other thing I do really enjoy at a destination wedding is the daylight flash. I have to say, I'm really kind of trying to hone that as much as I can. Off camera flash, holding it one hand, capturing the couple. I feel like
I think it suits your style, because you're quite soft when your work is very fine art, very soft, very romantic. So obviously, if you've got those harsh shadows, it doesn't suit your aesthetic. The flash will even it out, won't it?
Exactly that. And because where we are, the sun is always kind of, it's not super low yet, but it's low enough where it is creating shadows, but it's also quite harsh, because if you've had a ceremony at 3-4 o'clock and we're instantly kind of capturing some pictures, your shadows are quite harsh. And yeah, this can take away, the flash can take away that look and give it a more glamorous look, and it just makes a couple pop as well, because if you're flashing the couple, you're actually sort of slightly darkening the background, and you just get this couple that pop so much more than if you just shot in natural light.
It's
yes,
so interesting because like I would never shoot like that. Even when I do off-camera flash, I shoot on a much lower f-stop than that because I like things to be quite soft. And when Jay Bear second shoots for me, he's like, "Oh, I have to use your settings," and he doesn't like it as much. He likes everything to be really crisp and in focus, whereas I tend to focus on the chest or the bouquet so that the face is a lot softer, and he hates that. And it's just going back to that thing, isn't it? Of like
right or wrong,
nothing's
do what you
right
want.
or wrong. It's just
No.
whatever. Like my clients love not having many pores. Like that their face isn't as in focus as the flowers. Like, well, I think they do. They probably don't realize that that's what they love, but that's how I shoot and it's how I've always shot. So we've spoken a little bit about negative experiences with money, but I mean, most of my like awful experiences at weddings actually have all been at destination weddings because there's quite a big cultural difference between how weddings are operated in the UK versus how weddings are operated abroad, with things like timings,
Mm-hmm.
organisation, talking through the ceremony. There's a lot of things that wouldn't be okay in the UK that happen very normally abroad. So how do you sort of approach it to get things on track or keep things on track, even though things aren't happening how they would at home?
One of the things is to try and have a good rapport with the planner. And, I try and start that way before a wedding day. So we have numerous Zoom calls and whatnot, and you just have a good relationship with them. And then during the wedding day, things aren't quite occurring how you want them to. You can actually kind of speak to them and they can try and get things back on track or moving it into a way that works better for you. One of the things that's really got me this year, I don't know why it's a big thing for this year in particular, is firstly speeches in between courses. What's that about? It's dreadful. I suggest having speeches all before the meal takes place, or have them at the other end. But actually, my personal favorite is have them first, because all the tables, the details look, everything's looking fabulous. The light is good as well, and then they get the speeches out of the way, and then they can relax for dinner as well. So it's good for on their perspective. Where it's in between, it's nothing ever runs to time. The chef doesn't know when to put the food out. The waiters and waitresses don't know when they're going to be collecting glasses or plates or putting the next dish out, and it always overruns.
But you try telling them and they just don't listen. And like most of my destination this year, it's been speeches between courses. Some of them have been so long that they've been serving the food whilst the speeches have been happening because they've been that behind.
Exactly where I was leading to. Every single time that I'm photographing speeches, I've got a waiter in front of me with 6 plates giving it, and I'm trying to work over his shoulder. They're serving people near the people speaking. So, and then some are starting to eat. So there's just people with food in their mouths, and it's dreadful. Don't do speeches in between courses.
But it will happen, and especially if it's your first destination wedding, chances are it's not just going to be speeches between courses. Chances are loads of stuff's going to be wrong because it tends to be the lower budget weddings where these things aren't considered. So let's talk about practical tips. If I'm shooting a wedding where the speeches are happening and people are eating, what am I avoiding? What am I focusing on? How am I getting that magical ambience, even though, because we wouldn't normally shoot people while they're eating, right? So how do we avoid it?
You just have to live it, if you like, and see what's happening in front of you. You're going to be concentrating on the speakers. You're going to look around. You're going to see people laughing. I would still shoot normally, if I'm honest with you. I don't think I'd change too much. In the edit, I might adjust. And if someone who's laughing is next to someone eating, I'd probably crop the person eating out.
Hi.
Yeah, you're gone. So I wouldn't adjust too much because you'll probably end up just missing the kind of story of the speeches.
Yeah.
You just have to live it. You just have to get in front of the waiter, annoy the waiter. I've annoyed many waiters this year, but I'm like, I've got a job to do. One of them stuck a load of plates behind me on one of those kind of fold-up tables. Give the plates out, and as I'm walking backwards, I've ended up falling over the.
Oh,
Picked that
so
up
funny.
and threw that off into a bush because I'm like, don't want that there.
Oh God,
you just do it, don't you? You just you're there to do a job. However you do it, you just got to do it.
But I wanted to touch on the eating pictures because I went to a networking event last week and they put a photo up of me eating. And I was like, I don't look like that. That is the worst photo of me I've ever seen. And when, like, the best way to get new clients from a wedding is to make sure that everybody looks incredible in every single
Yeah,
photo. So if they are eating, you don't really want to be including those and you do want to be cropping them out, even if it means that you have to delete a really gorgeous photo of the bride because the person next to her looks awful and there's no way of cropping it without it looking crap. It just needs to go. And then another thing that I was going to suggest, which you may or may not agree with, is how organized you have to be with the family portraits. You can't leave stuff for golden hour at destination, it's too risky. Maybe the couple, but any family photo, like in the UK, we might leave bridesmaids and groomsmen or wedding party for later. You just can't do that, can you, at
no,
destination?
no.
For the
So
timings mainly.
yeah, just to touch upon then the eating, I always brief couples long before a wedding. I don't photograph any of the eating stages. You can't capture it well. They're all
Yeah,
getting, food out the teeth or whatever. You can't capture it. I'll capture some wides and drone stuff, but
yeah.
not individual
Maybe
people
the food, but not
of the
people.
food. Yeah, yeah. It's just as soon as that food starts, essentially, I say, oh, that's when I back out. I'm a bit of a stickler for the timings in the fact that I don't ever want to leave stuff for later a lot of the time because weather changes. Oh, so much can happen. I'm someone that will say groups are first, instantly get groups. So if
Straight
I'm
after the
wine,
ceremony.
yeah, I'm ceremony, confetti, or whatever straight away afterwards, whether they walk down the aisle to confetti or they'll do a confetti slightly separately. As soon as confetti's finished, I say we do groups because everybody is collated. Everyone's still there. They haven't drifted off to the toilet or the bar or whatever. And we can get those done straight away. We don't leave them. Once they're done, it's nicer for those guys as well because they're not standing around thinking, oh, I've still got to do this, I've still got to do that. Or, they can now relax. And then from that, we do a little first session with a couple because again, I'm someone that likes to get a few shots in the bag in
Yeah,
case
I agree.
circumstances change, and then get them back. They can relax, and then at a destination wedding, I'll go back to them before they head to dinner, and we can go out again. Now the light has changed; we've got more of a kind of golden hour feel. Get them around the tables, get some shots there, and then they've got two little mini sessions captured, and then they can eat. And I feel like by then I've got yeah, 100%. And then you get a third option later when it's dark and a bit of flash going off or whatever, and you can have more fun. But I'm always someone that gets stuff in the bag so you've kind of got what you need before you can start being a bit more creative
I
later.
think, and I don't know if you agree, it's so much better to bank something in bad light with
Yeah,
the daylight than
yeah.
if you delay it, somebody's going to get too pissed and then a groomsman's going to take his tie off and
Uh-huh.
everybody gets really drunk really quick because
100 things
it's
could happen.
hot and
Bride
everything goes
spills wine
away.
down.
Yeah. One of my brides fainted this summer and it was really scary. She was fine, but it's just a different environment. And when you've been partying for like 3 days, even if you're not drinking, because I think she was on medication, so she was sober,
Yeah,
but you just don't know what's going to happen. You just need to get those in the bag because if they've gone all that way,
yeah,
your job as the photographer is just to document it. Even if
yeah,
it's not perfect, just get it in the bag because
yeah.
if something goes wrong, you'll be riddled with stress for the rest of the day.
Yeah, I say to couples a lot. I never waste a good walk. Anywhere you're going, stay together because I'm going to capture you walking together. And even when we start those group pictures, just as I position them up before I bring the family in, I'll say to them, "Hey guys, just quickly get together, hand around each other, and we'll get a few shots there even before the group because then you've got your first stages of the couple shoot. And if by chance for some reason you don't get any other opportunity to photograph them together like that, at least you've got something.
Yeah. But it's just that pressure of knowing that they've paid all this money to go all that way. They want the background in
Mm.
it. They want the view. They want the building. They've invested. It's more than a 1 day wedding. It's not even that it's destination. It's just that it's multiple days. If you wait and then it's dinner time and you're pulling them out from their dinner or it's dark, like it's just
Yeah,
too risky, isn't it?
exactly. And the weather forecasts, take them with a pinch of salt. They're never right. So just do it when you can. And as the day progresses, you can be like, we do have a sunset. Okay, now we can kind of start being a bit more creative.
On that note, I mean, I shot a wedding in Mallorca last week in a storm and it was pissing it down all day. We ended up being able to it was a Hindi ceremony in the morning and a Western ceremony in the afternoon. And the only bit of dry that we had, luckily, was when the Western ceremony happened. But the rest of the day was complete, like wind, rain, everything. How do you approach shooting a wedding when they've obviously gone to Greece, let's say? and then the weather's shit. Like, how are you bringing it with your energy? Practical tips are you taking to protect your kit? Like, talk me through your process when it's awful weather.
Do you know the key word there? Bring the energy. Because if you're going, oh no, oh look at the weather, that's not gonna help matters, you know. And also, well, I'll probably mention to them, I photographed 450 weddings or whatever it is in my career, and I reckon a good 250 of them have been wet. So this isn't a new thing, and actually, weirdly, you can get amazing pictures in the rain. So let's not hide away from it. This is part of the story. Let's capture it. Have some umbrellas if it's the couple shoot. Go outside. You know, we won't try and get them too wet, but under the umbrellas, walking along all snuggled in, can look very romantic. If you think of old Hollywood movies, nearly always the couple was in the rain. So you know, we'll use that to our advantage, and we'll capture some fabulous pictures. And yes, you know, it's probably not quite what they had in mind, and they're not outside eating al fresco, they're inside, and yes, they're not going to quite look the same. But then it becomes a different story. It becomes I actually revert a little bit back to my old documentary days, because now I'm going to capture people inside laughing, joking, having fun. And there is a really weird thing about rain where it creates a more party atmosphere inside, because people
It's
think,
not intimate.
yeah, and
Not intimate.
they drink more. I don't know why, and the party just goes crazy. So
I think I said this to my bride last week. I think it's better when it rains for the vibe because your guests make more effort. If it's gorgeous weather, guests are quite selfish. They like
yeah,
chat
yeah,
together, they sit around, everybody spreads out and they
chilled
disperse.
out in the sun. Yeah,
Yeah, they just chill out, don't they? Whereas when it rains, everyone's like, oh no, it's raining, they must be so sad. And then they make more effort to make you feel. Have you noticed that?
yeah. But I do think it's a case of outside, hot sunny day, they drift off into the grounds, they're walking around, it's all very mellow and chilled. You stick them in a room inside with the bar,
Yeah.
and suddenly the atmosphere steadily increases, and by the time you get to the party, I love it. They're just going crazy. So again, swings and roundabouts. It's not quite possibly what they were aiming for when they were booked it, but they're
But
still
it's
going to
still
get an amazing
special.
day. Yeah.
So, from a photography point of view, how are you approaching that awful weather day differently? You said that you're shooting on one body now anyway, but are you doing less off-camera flash? Are you
Yeah.
doing ambient? Are you shooting on a prime? Like, what are the practical things?
If we're inside, I'm probably being a little less, I would say, artistic, but I'm going to be probably flash on camera, and I'm going to just want to capture the essence of what's going on in a room. You know, people chatting, laughing, joking. It's less thinking about what the light's doing outside and the sun and whatever else. You do adjust slightly. You just capture what the story is, what capturing that story around you, and giving them the best images for their memory, you know, later on. But it is a slight adjustment, just to capture the story of people, really, more than anything.
I love that. Well, we're coming to an end. I've just got like one more question that I'm going to ask you, and it's quite an open one. If you had 5 grand in your bank account, you are a UK-based wedding photographer, you've not shot abroad before. The goal is to be Ross Hurley, international stan of weddings. What am I doing with that 5 grand to get me on my way?
So the old adage of, I've heard this from various different people, you need to have the content in the place that you want to shoot. You can't just put a picture up of a barn in Kent and change the location to Tuscany, because I've seen that. That 5K needs to be invested into getting that content in places that you want to be, to then hold you in good stead to then progressively get bookings afterwards. So what would I do? You know, let's say Tuscany. I want to shoot in Tuscany. I'm going to use that money to either look for some workshops that are currently running that have, you know, dates within these places, and join that, get the content, come back, put that on the website, share that everywhere, create blog posts for the venues, and, you know, advertise that as well if necessary, and see the sort of inquiries come through. That's what I would do initially. Or if you're more brave, maybe go direct to a venue you want to shoot at, discuss with them putting on a shoot where you book a model couple, and you fly out, attend that venue, photograph the couple, share it with the venue, they share it on your website, on your instas or whatever, and then again, hopefully you should start seeing some sort of return from that. But that 5K has to be an investment. You're not going to get instant 5K, I'm booking a wedding. It's got to just be put it into these areas to get those inquiries coming back at you.
Yeah, I love that. Oh, Ross, this has just been amazing. I like when I was really concentrating on what you were saying then. I was like, you really know your shit. This is going to be so good for people to listen to. Thank you so much for agreeing to do that. I feel like we've covered so much ground. But I'm also going to put your links down below because you've now also started offering one-to-one mentoring and you are incredible. So people would be lucky to learn from you. So I'll get all those links off you and pop them down below. And you need to tell me
Wonderful.
your insurance as well because
Yeah,
my
I'll send you that.
was not good. Right. Whatever you're up to.
Thank you very much. It's been brilliant. Really enjoyed this.
Yeah, me too. Talk to you soon.
Talk to you soon.
Thank you so much for being here and watching this. If you enjoyed this episode, you can learn from other photographers such as Jess Gwyneth, Jess Lilly. There's loads of amazing, talented people. Just search Very Wild Photography on YouTube, subscribe for more, and I'm sharing videos every Sunday on different topics that I think are going to help you. So please do consider joining us.